Welcome back to Unified Reality. On today's episode, the evolution of music events, insights from my good friend Rickey D. On the episode, we'll be talking about his journey, the evolution of music events, experiential and branded content, and much more, and a little sprinkle of AI. Rickey D, how are you, my friend?
Man, it's great, man. It's been a minute since we connected.
Been a minute, man. So,
See you.
like, you were a mentor for us when we grew up, man. Like,
It's
every
a pleasure,
party,
man.
every cool thing in the city was brought to us by you.
Oh man, that's a big compliment. But I had a lot of people that were working beside me, in front of me, and behind me. So I was just very dedicated to what I was doing, to the point that you saw me at the majority of the spots, the cool things that were.
All the cool things. Big man. So yes,
you.
we understand that it's not
Right.
always just us, right? We need a
Yes.
good team,
Absolutely.
but we also need good leaders, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely know you're a good leader. I saw you like from when I was probably 12 years old. I've been hearing your names, seeing the
Yeah.
flyers from back then. The flyer that I remember the most
Uh-huh.
is Biggie. When he couldn't come though,
Yeah.
but that was like I thought that was gonna be the craziest show ever.
Yeah, well,
What-
like how that came about. Unfortunately, I wasn't one of the producers. I actually didn't think that Biggie was that poppin'. My old partner, Gary T, had approached me, and he said to me, he's bringing a guy named Notorious B.I.G, Biggie Smalls. I didn't think he was going to do any numbers. So I was like, yo, I'm going to pass on this one. I'm not going to do it. Lo and behold, the show ended up selling out. I'm kicking myself in the head saying I should have jumped on that one. But, we all think we're geniuses when we already know now what the result is, right? So my man called me. Gary told me, listen, he has an issue with Biggie and his team. And they're at the border. So he said, I need you to go down there and talk to, him and his management and see if we can get him across. So what had happened is that a year before that, Biggie went to Toronto and he performed down there for a guy named Tony Duncan. Tony Duncan was a well-known black promoter from Toronto who had produced this show with Biggie. And it was sold out, but even back then, remember, it was 1 year after he was coming to us. And it was so packed that he didn't have enough security. So the fans ended up being the security. So Biggie was rapping, and somebody from the crowd got on the stage, took the mic out of his hands, and started to freestyle. So Biggie freaked out with his boy because he didn't come with many people. It's just maybe him and another guy. And they backed out of the place and they left. And they said that the next time they come to Canada, they're bringing their boys. So, bringing their boys meaning they're bringing guys that have felonies, guys who have had attempted murder, gun charges, you name it, he was bringing them. So now he's coming up to Canada. This time he's coming with a band. On top of the band, he's rolling with his crew. So they get to the border, the LaColle border, Plattsburgh. For all those who know Plattsburgh, New York, they share a border. The border's called LaColle on our side. And they got there and they got frisked. They got strip searched. They had dogs put into the tour bus.
Wow.
Some of his band members were from the Dominican Republic, so they were going to get deported if they came across. It was just a real mess. So he was like, I'm not coming. But remember, now Gary has a sold-out show. So I drive down there with a couple of girls to try to entice him. So I get to the Super 8 Motel, which is outside of Plattsburgh. I get there, I meet his road manager. His road manager comes to the door of his room, motel, I should say. And he has no shirt on, heavily tattooed, like those Tupac tattoos that go across your body. And he had a shotgun blast, like a stitches from here all the way down the stomach. So, I'm looking at that, right? I never seen anything like that in my life. So I'm looking at that, and then he tells me that Chris is not going to come. And I'm
This is Christopher.
Yeah, Christopher. So I'm begging him, so to speak, and I said, look, I got some girls, I got some weed back in Canada, the booze, it's a sold out show, we're ready, please. So then he said, okay, I'm going to text the manager. So he, back then we had the
two-way.
Yeah, we had the two-way and the pager and all of that. So he pays the manager, called from New York, and into the motel. So I'm speaking to the manager. I say the same thing I said to the road manager. He said, listen, no problem. If you can get him to come, my guy will take you to his room. I'm like, thank you. I'm making headway. So now we get to his door, knock on the door. The road manager does. He opens the door. You see this hulking of a big guy. He's basically covering all of the space of the door. You could see like little cracks. So I got to see at that time, I didn't know who it was. She had blonde hair and was Faith Evans. I only knew this after the fact when her album came out, but she was in the room with him. So I had the girls to the sides, right? So now he opens the door and basically is like, what do you want type of thing. And I said, Canada's waiting for you. We're ready, sold out. Got the weed. I got the vehicle here. All you got to do is get in the car with your mans and let's go. And he looked at me. I was standing at the edge of the door, maybe a few feet outside because I didn't want to step in this room. And he looked at me and said, fuck Canada, and closed the door in my face.
What?
So I said, okay, that didn't go well. So then I went back to the road manager's room and I made a phone call to Gary in Montreal. And I told Gary, yo, he's not coming. And I'm going home.
Damn.
And then everything exploded. They smashed the place up. They smashed up.
What year is this?
Oh, man. That was like before he died, maybe
95?
Maybe, yeah, 96, 95. It's around that time.
That's
I can't remember the exact timeline.
So you met Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G,
yeah,
Christopher, and Faith Evans, and he said, F Canada.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
I just closed the door in my face, and that was it.
And that was it. Did he ever come? He did
Never.
come. Oh, yeah.
Never think, but then after he got killed.
He passed away.
He ended up coming out with not the Ready to Die album. That was already out. And he was coming out with the next album there.
So he actually never came back. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's my involvement in it.
That's a great story, man, and I like the fact that you took the time to tell us because that's history. You understand?
Oh yeah.
All right, man. I want to talk a bit more about your journey and how you got started. Like, how old were you when you said, "All right, you know what? I want to throw parties." And I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Your first event was Run DMC.
That was my first concert, but before that, I was doing parties. I started off as a party promoter. I was working for this promotional team. I was born and raised in Little Burgundy, and my next door neighbor in City Housing, he lived actually one apartment above me. He was a DJ, but he didn't like to hand out flyers or do any promo. He just wanted to get the girls and DJ. That's all. He was and get the bag.
You didn't want to do the marketing?
No, he didn't want to, do the heavy lifting. He didn't want to go out there and shake hands and kiss babies in order to get them in the room. He just wanted to get the DJ, get his bag, and get the broads at the same time. So there was an opportunity for me there because I couldn't rap, I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance. I couldn't do anything of that. Break dance, pop.
Is it because did you try?
Yeah, I just didn't have it. You know what I mean? It just wasn't my thing. It just wasn't good, and that's what it is. But I loved the music, and I loved everything that had to do with entertainment. So I started handing out flyers for these parties. And I started going. I was one of the first guys to start to go to, I used to go to the parties at Dawson and Vanier, Cegeps, and the universities. I used to go to the premieres like Breakdance 84 and all of these others and handing out flyers at all of the black events, all the hip hop events. I would go to whatever black shows. We didn't have many at that time, but the Stevie Wonders and the Luther Vandross and them, they would come because they were considered pop.
Yeah.
So I would go to
And who was promoting those shows?
Donald K. Donald.
Okay, yeah, DKD, man.
He was doing like the really big boys. Him and Sheldon Kagan. They were
Did you ever work with DKD?
Yeah, actually, I produced with Gary and Alex Toby and a few other guys. We produced the first major hip hop show in the Bell Center, which at that time was called the Molson Center in '96, and that was with Tribe Called Quest, Cypress Hill, and De La Soul.
Man, I was there.
Yeah,
that was a crazy show.
Yeah.
Like the next day, everybody was talking about how Be Real, it's all that stuff. Yeah. I'll get into it, but I didn't even know that was you. Shout out to DKD and also Gary T. I know him very well too.
Yeah.
From back in the mixtape days. Man, that's crazy. But okay, let me just forward a little back. What age were you? Like your first party?
Oh, I was maybe about 18, 17, 18. I've been going to clubs since I was 15 because I was tall. So, I was able to fool.
And how was like hip hop and all of that and like marketing all of this? Was this easier back then?
Oh, it was easier in the sense that we weren't slaves to digital. We had different ways of getting to the people. So you had radio, you had print, you had flyers, you had different mediums available. You had newspapers like the Hour, the Voir, the Montreal Mirror. Those were like weekly, dedicated to the arts. You had different ways of getting out there. We used to go mix cassettes, the artist music, mix tapes, and we used to do specialty tapes, give those away. Promotional tapes of like
I saw a few of those tapes, and I'm actually gonna bring one out now. Rich, can you bring one of the? Sorry, man. Someone can bring me a CD. Anyone over there. Man, I saw your tapes, and it sparked something in me. I saw I think it was at Taboo's. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Taboo was definitely one of the spots we used to go
and I was like, why don't we do CDs, and also put flyers and audio ads in there. Yes. And eventually I saw Rich and the crew, like 514411 Ground Up. I saw a DVD, like it was an actual, look at that, man, Fuzzy Brossard.
Yeah.
Or look at this, man, The Game.
For sure. These are what we're going out there, right? Best of Nas, The Game.
So that's what started my small career. You see, like it says DJ Genius and Genius Marketing.
Yes.
All the way to now Genius XR and in the future and in space and all kinds of AI. But that I consider that as content marketing, right? And exactly what you guys were doing.
Yes.
We saw that and we're like, man, we need to continue.
Exactly. There was a great market for these things, Coming out of New York, you've seen a lot of guys where getting rich off of this. If they did it properly, they were really making things happen, and a lot of them became influential. Where you wanted to be on their mixtape, or you wanted to have one of these, and then record labels started producing their own in order to market their artists. So there was a lot of different things. So these are some of the things that we started off with, to bring the word out there. Now it's a lot more, difficult.
Yeah, because also this had some sort of value, right? Because we had less content, and we would buy an album and listen to it for a whole year. Now, I don't think they listen to it more than a few weeks, right? And they just go on.
Well, if it's like my kids, they they barely listen to a minute and a half or 2 minutes.
It's crazy.
Of an actual song before they skip to the next.
How many kids you got?
I got 2.
Congrats, man. How old are they?
24 is my son, and 19 is my daughter.
Oh, man, I think the last time I asked you, you said like 12.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, man.
Yeah,
time flies.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes, so I've been blessed on that level. I have some good family, good people.
So talking of music, like what is that big change that you saw, right? So you saw DJs with a bunch of vinyls and now that digital stuff. Like, what do you think of all this?
Well, I predicted over 20 years ago when I saw things went to CDs with the whole Napster thing and everything. And I knew that the beginning of the end was happening when I saw Apple do a campaign and call it Rip It, Burn It.
Oh,
remember? And that was a big campaign that basically encouraged the average person who had some power to the computer to start to rip out the music. And that was a huge change
of how we consume music, right?
And music no longer became the domain of the exclusive, right? Also, I saw an explosion of artists. And by doing so, yeah, it's great, but it's like having a fridge. And metaphorically speaking, you go in the fridge, you have 3 things to choose from. Well, you're going to choose one of those 3, or you're not going to eat or drink, right? But when your fridge is full, now it becomes more difficult to choose what you're going to eat. You might just go to what you know. You might sample everything, or you might be overwhelmed by what you see and don't take anything at all.
Well said. I feel like it's the same for content, right?
Yes.
Like video, pictures, everything really, games, movies. That's a good point you're saying. Now, what do you think the impact is? So the impact is that we have more artists, but the value of music is also gone, right?
It's gone, now it's...
I also
want to make it in music now is 2 different ways. Either you have to be co-signed by somebody who's there, or you have to be extremely lucky and be in the right place where, for some reason, the fan gravitates to you. There's guys who spent their whole lifetime trying to get that co-sign, never got it. There's guys out there who have tried, artists, male and female, who have tried and never was able to achieve the satisfaction of
commercial viability,
right, of doing it. So, they either get discouraged, stop doing it, or they continue to grind till there's nothing to grind anymore. Or they get lucky.
Some do get
lucky. Lucky is when, my version of lucky is when preparation meets opportunity.
That's exactly it.
And that's my version of luckiness. If they're ready and they're in the right place, they might get the shot. But who's to say?
So has the evolution of music, example, having like record pools, right, and DJs, them not interacting with music the same thing, has it changed events? Like, are events
record
different?
Pools, like, I'll give you an example. If you look at a record pool, back in the day, they were pushing vinyl. Then they were pushing CDs. So you would release a certain amount of records. That made the record exclusive. So if a DJ was able to get one of those records, right, they were in an exclusive domain in which they would play it. Because there's many other DJs that wanted it but couldn't get it.
They couldn't get it.
So that made them a notch above those ones who were mere mortals. So the key to that game was to get that record. So the record labels understood that. So they didn't release it to the point that every Tom, Dick, and Harry DJ can have it.
I get it.
At least at the beginning. And then once it reached a certain level of popularity, then they would blow it out. And
they would it was a strategy behind it. And so I'm guessing that you would pick those DJs to do parties with, right?
Some of them, yeah, because they're the most popular ones. They were the ones who were hustling, getting the kings. They were the best politicers. They knew how to politic with the promoters. Promoters liked them. They weren't ridiculously expensive. They knew how to work with them. They knew how to do their branding.
That's good. That's well said, man. So you started, you've done so many events. I don't know if you know the count of it, how many you've done, but where are you at right now? Like, are you into like big events, smaller event festivals? Do you work with a lot of other promoters?
I work with a bit of festivals. I mostly link myself up with Evenco. I have a long-standing history with them from the days of Donald K. Donald.
Shout out to Vedco.
Yeah, one of the key players in Evenco was myself and him, and a few of us went to high school together. We started in the business. He started in ska music, and then he evolved into being one of the founders of Oshiga and everything. So we've always maintained a very strong relationship. He comes from an indie background, so him and a few of his executives, they have an indie background. What does that mean? They know how to connect with people. It's not just a corporate machine who's just basically going to, they're corporate. So, they
We understand you want to have to make money, but
right, they got a machine, they got to be fed, but they also have a bit of humanity to them too. They're not as cold-blooded as, say, somebody who's never come from the corporate world. And I'm in corporate from the indie world, and are now placed into a corporate position. They know how to talk to you better and how to give you a little taste to keep you rolling.
that's one of my questions I was going to ask you. How important is that, right? To know how the artist thinks to do a proper event, especially if it's a concert.
Well, at the end of the day, it's not what the artist thinks, right? The artist lays out their masterpiece, and it's up to you to figure it out if you can do something with that masterpiece, right? All their language, all their conversation comes from their music. And this is why a guy like a Prince would very rarely do interviews, because for him, everything he needs to say is in that record.
And listen to my music.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look,
I put it.
and you'll know who I am.
Yeah, it's true, because you could catch them off guard or not scripted, but that art piece, you have to listen to it.
You got to listen to it. You got to make it happen.
So, what are some of the big challenges? Like, I'm wondering, why don't we have like a hip hop festival in Montreal, or do we? Is Oshiaga considered a hip hop festival? So how come we don't have one?
Well, we ended up having one with what's his name there, Oliver Primo.
Oh yeah,
he had that going on for a minute.
True, I forgot. But they declared bankruptcy, right?
Yeah, well, he got himself, a lot of troubles with a lot of unsavory people who basically, wanted to put him out of business because he tried to change his business model on them, and it doesn't work with those kind of people.
Yeah, well, if you've promised something, you have to give them.
If you're into them, you're into them.
Yeah.
Right? There's no like, well, see you later, buddy. It was nice doing business with you. I'll catch you when I see you. No.
No, it's a blood life thing.
Yeah, you're there until we say you can leave. Right? So that's what happened with him.
Is there at some point that you wanted to do this? Like,
absolutely. I was talking with Venko years before that. We were going to do the one with Greenland. We had meetings about it. But, we're all into our own little world of doing things. Even though the intent was there, it never got further than that.
Is it because the city is different, or do we have enough people?
I think we do. What you don't realize is that Evenco is one of the top 5 in North America.
Yes, this I know.
Okay,
they're really
so you don't.
What they
so you don't produce that many shows in a market unless it's working. So what does that mean? In light of Montreal's current history with the languages and all of that bullshit, still, Montreal still ranks up there as one of the cities that attracts the most concert goers in North America, let alone in the world, on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's still up there. So, imagine Evenco, produces over 1,000
Yeah,
2,000.
it's a machine,
You know,
man.
right. And
Well oiled.
you don't produce that many shows if you're not making money and people are not coming out.
Yeah, it doesn't work out because at some point your
just
fake
gonna,
thing dies off.
and you're just bleeding so much money.
Shout out to everyone that we know there.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a great job. And
Absolutely.
you know, now it's Live Nation, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be just. I feel like it might be bigger and better. Hopefully, more opportunities for
Well,
everyone.
not necessarily for everyone, because what ends up happening is you create a monopoly, and when you create a monopoly, not everybody, there has to be a certain level of free enterprise
Yes,
in order to bring the best things out. When
that is true. I didn't see it like that.
when you control all the chain of production, from being a promoter to being a venue to being an artist management.
So they're also in management too, right?
Yes.
So
Especially Live Nation.
and they own the venues, so now and the ticketing too.
Right.
And we know that there's a lot of issues with Ticketmaster.
Well, you see what's happening with Ticketmaster and
like
with the Department of Justice coming for them for antitrust.
Yeah, well, man, there's a lot of bots and all kinds of different schemes going on there. Like, I'm a programmer, I could see it. Like, I'm like, man, if I could see it for sure, FBI's seeing it. Yeah, I totally did not look at it like that. I'm like me, I was looking at it as a fan. I'm like, Live Nation is gonna bring us more shows, but looking at it as an entrepreneur, this is happening everywhere.
You need free enterprise because,
Yeah,
for
free
example,
entrepreneur kills
yes,
the competition, right?
right,
Competition is what leads to better pricing and better products.
exactly, out on the streets, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes Evenko will see a show and they'll be like, I don't want to do that show.
And now because they have the monopoly,
right,
and they've kind of set it up in a way where someone else can't come and say, I want that show. They're like, no, these guys have the exclusivity for Canada, let's say, and they're not taking it.
So that's what happens. Where maybe with them, it's peanuts, but with a guy like me, it's gold.
I get it.
One man's treasure is another man's garbage.
Yeah, well, this continent was built on free entrepreneurship.
You need it. You need it. You need it in order to keep it. Doesn't mean that you can't be the top dog. It doesn't mean that, but you see, sometimes power corrupts.
Yes,
and it's unintentional. I don't think they came into a situation where they want to shut me out or they want to shut this guy out. But they look at other competitors. They start to lock down their assets. They overstep their boundaries because in the pursuit of locking down their assets, they went too far.
Yes.
So now it becomes a point that nobody can get in no more. Yeah, they're happy they locked down, but there's a lot of people now who can't eat. And if they happen to fall into their bad books or they don't like them or they don't want to do nothing with them, then they're done. And that's not, there's a lot of artists who don't want to work with the Live Nations. They want to do things independently.
Yeah.
They want to go and work, they want to keep it as grassroots as possible, yet they're very popular.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a category in itself that we should not ignore, right? The underground. So I had Monkey yesterday here.
Monkey, great guy.
And he was like, listen, I don't want that. I want to be underground. That's my value. That's who I am.
Right.
And so even if Evenko wants to book me, I might not want to do it. And so if Evenko comes and locks the whole thing, well, now he's not happy. The fans are not happy. Well, why is this happening?
It's happening because
I'd say
his power gets them the respect.
So what happens is shareholders, right? You have shareholders, you have investors. They don't look at the artist or the people at the company. They only look at numbers, and those numbers have to go up every quarter.
That's right.
Every quarter. Come on, guys, relax. There can't be growth forever, ever, ever. Sometimes there's less growth. That's why we're in a recession, right? Some people get very greedy, and then they think it's forever. But that's another convo. Cool, man. So I just want to touch up a little bit more on sponsorship and influencers. How much in today's world, and I know it shifted. You said that back then it had more value. The CD had more value than a 30-second video that someone watches. They have to see it 10 times to know what they just saw. But putting that aside, like looking at today's um, landscape, do you use influencers to market events?
Um, Not necessarily, no, because I didn't really grow up in that era of influencers. Um, I've always felt that if you had a great product, it will sell itself. I always believed in picking the right artists for the right moment, get you the right result. You know, influencers can be a tricky business because if you don't have a real good relationship with them, they're looking for dollars because they're trying to shop their quote influence. But it doesn't mean that what they are capable of influencing is what you got. So I tend to not build into that as much. Is it because I'm old school? Maybe.
But you've tried it, right?
Yeah, I've worked with one or two guys, and I just
Like, let's say, so tell us a little bit of the process. Let's say you book an artist today. Would you make a video ad to play?
yes, absolutely.
And do you also ask the artist to give you like a shout out or whatever it is?
So
But then you're not going to turn around and pay a local person to promote it.
yeah, because the reason why I look at it that way is that you know I could look at a local influencer. They could have 1 million people on their social media, say their Instagram. Some of it could be bought, some of it could be not. Most of it might not even be
From here.
here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
So how do I quantify giving them that money, knowing simply that it's not there? And then there's not one person, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 of them all claiming to be that guy.
Yeah.
So now, how do you choose which one is which? And how do you really quantify on that? For a guy like me, it could get very tricky because my bag is only so deep, right?
Well, you have a certain budget and you have to prioritize on what to do.
Right.
And so I'm thinking you prioritize more on having an image and promoting it in the channels that already exist.
So what I would do is instead of buying an influencer, I would, take that same money, maybe add a little bit more, and I would buy ads on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok.
And you're seeing a better return on these?
Yeah, I'm seeing, of course, I'm seeing.
Because you directly link it to buying the ticket, right?
Not even, yes, of course.
Great,
Of course,
great.
Of course.
I have a last segment for you, my friend. You know, you are basically an entrepreneur. And what do you have like for the next upcoming entrepreneurs? What's the best advice you could give to a young person? No worries, man. No worries.
Yeah,
We have to shut off the AC, but it'll be back soon. It's like super hot in Montreal today. Crazy hot. We like it, but yeah, we also like AC.
Yeah, you really do.
Go ahead. And because there's all these lights, right, and all this equipment, everything's hot. Okay, so what's the biggest challenge you had as an entrepreneur, other than money, right? Because we always have that challenge as entrepreneurs. What was the biggest challenge? Like, was it education? Was it who you are, where you're from? It could also be money there, but
It's a little bit of everything, Finances is one thing that limits the amount of shows you can produce. Down, in terms of different artists, different cities, different markets, relationships with artists. It's very hard to get the more current, the most recent artists because they fall into the domain of the bigger agencies in America. And the bigger agencies like to work with the bigger promotion companies, like the Live Nations and the Invancos of the world. So they end up getting the first calls. At one time with hip hop, I was getting a call from Beverly Hills, from New York, from Paris, from London.
Basically, all the biggest players were just,
right, because
we want to book a show.
Because back then, hip hop was super thugging, right? And a lot of the mainstream didn't want to, deal with that. They thought it was too volatile for them, too violent, too this, too that. They just thought it was just.
They were scared.
They were scared. So they left it. They left it alone. But these agents needed to fill their routes. So a guy like me became very important. A guy like Gary T, the Alex Tobys and all of us, we became very important because if
they call you, you could fill up that city or maybe even a few cities.
Right. And then starting around 2000.
Coming back to your point, sorry to cut you. So essentially, the corporate America has taken over. And this is not just in the music, it's almost everywhere. So, companies merging together, merging, and then having some sort of monopoly. But what would be your advice for someone that's young and wants to get into the music business or events?
Be passionate. Do your research on the artists you want to bring. Understand that, you can win and you can lose. Build good budgets. Realize that there's a lot of people in that industry that love to take your money.
Like suppliers?
You're dealing with unscrupulous agents, crooked managements. You go and you send your money because you have to send your money to them. So, imagine you're sending 20 G's to somebody. You never seen them before. You never talked to them before. You don't know what they look like. You don't know where they live. Nothing.
That's crazy.
All you know is you're sending 20 bands to that guy.
This must have been so much more crazy back then when there was no internet. Because now you could at least search the guy, find something. Back then it must have been like, I don't even know who I'm giving my money to. Like, really?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? But back then, it was easier to talk to the legitimate agencies like the William Morrises, the CAs, the ICMs, you know what I mean? The UTAs.
So now they don't even take the call anymore, I guess, right?
Hardly. And when they do, they'll leverage your offer
to someone else.
To somebody else.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, this small promoter. Yeah. And they say it like that, right? And then they're like, Live Nation, you pay this much more, we'll give it to you.
Right. Or look, we got this guy sending us in for 20 bands. You want to give us 10. But he's sending it for 20.
Okay, yeah.
But this guy that's sending it for 20 really knows his music. So why aren't you matching his offer? Then they look, they go, oh, shit, maybe we should.
Damn.
They take it. So, you get a lot of that going on. You get a lot of leverage, a lot of, agents playing younger promoters and experienced promoters at that.
Excellent, man. It was great talking to you, Ricky. I loved having you on the show, man. Thank you very much, and you're welcome to come here anytime you want.
Absolutely. I love what you're doing, man. You've definitely stepped up your game.
Thank you, man. We will see you soon, man.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Absolutely.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah.